Andy Chrisman of For Him has spent 40 plus years in Christian music, and chances are he knows your favorite artist personally. Now he's bringing you their stories.
I'm Andy Chrisman.
In his new podcast, 1 Degree of Andy, he sits down with the voices behind the songs for real, honest, and faith-filled conversations you won't hear anywhere else.
That's a great question.
If you love Christian music, this is your backstage pass.
The 1 Degree of Andy podcast.
Listen now to 1 Degree of Andy wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and today we're going to do an open mic, and I never know who's going to show up, but the point of open mic is to give people an avenue to share their wares, share their thoughts. So services, products, and tools all wrapped in dementia and caregiving. So maybe you, yes, you can join us next time. It's open to anyone around the world. We would love to hear what you're doing in the sphere of dementia. Prior to me pulling back the curtain here, I always recommend that people check out alzheimerspeaks.com. We have a ton of free educational resources. Same with our sister company, Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory. And if you're not on it, you should be. We have both free and for fee profiles that you can have, and it's free to the public to use. You don't need an account. You don't have to remember a password. And then last, I always like to do a shout out to my webmasters, Q for Good. They are absolutely exceptional. They know what they're doing. They reduce your stress. They meet their deadlines, and they communicate fabulously, all for a very economical price in my mind. So check out Q for Good. If you mention my name, you can get 10% off as well, but they're glad to just meet with you and see if you're a match. So let's go ahead and pull back the curtain and see who's with us today. Well, Kirstin, it's nice to see you today. Thanks for joining me on Open Mic. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, Lori. Thanks for having me.
Good. Glad you're here. I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourself and also tell people about your company.
Sure. My name is Kirstin, and I guess I'll start off by saying I have been personally touched by a loved one with dementia. My mom is 82, and she has frontotemporal and vascular dementia. A relatively new formal diagnosis, but something that I guess we saw long coming now. She is currently in a care home about 15 minutes away from me, so I'm able to visit her almost every day. And between those visits, she calls, and she calls a lot, sometimes 10 times before lunch. And when I'm telling people this, I say, that's okay. I love that she still calls me, but I can't, I was finding I was, leaping out of the shower to take that call. I was going the extra mile to field all of those phone calls. And I was doing a pretty good job, but it was those calls that I couldn't get to that actually weighed really heavily on me. I was worried she thought maybe I had abandoned her, or maybe something was actually really wrong. So I was looking for something, and I couldn't find anything that would solve those calls. And I know that, with a lot of research that I've done there since, in dementia care, one of the most cited ethical principles is to not remove the autonomy unnecessarily. So to keep the independence intact as best you can. So when I was looking at alternatives to trying to field these calls that I couldn't physically get to, I was met with solutions like, silencing the calls or call blocking, or just having it go to voicemail. Now I'll just rewind the times and say that this pattern of phone calls is something I'm sadly too familiar with. In high school, I dealt with this with my grandmother, my mom's mom. So we would be away all day, my mom at the office and myself at school. And by the time we'd get home, there would be hundreds of voice messages. And that was back in the day when the answering machine would play loud and clear for the whole household. And so I found over time that those messages made it sound like she almost thought that the outgoing recording was a live person, just based on the context or the messaging. And early on, my mom would handle most of those calls, but I actually ended up taking the baton. And I could see that it was really, draining on my mom, and then became for me. But so I've lived this before, and it started to happen again in present day now with myself and my mother. So those options that I cited weren't going to work for me. I couldn't leave my mom hanging. I couldn't leave her in a state in worry. And actually, there's a lot of studies done on this, but UCLA Health says that that those calls that are blocked actually leave the loved one suffering from dementia in a further state of agitation. And then those calls actually come with more urgency and at a higher volume. So it's just this repetition. So it's all based on this anxiety and what they call separation anxiety in dementia patients. So KindredMind was born from that. So that's something. I have a background in entrepreneurship and building tech products. So this was something now I saw a problem and tried to solve, and that being not to replace me in this case, but to kind of amplify my voice for those moments where, say, for example, and this has happened, I'm in my daughter's dance recital and I physically can't take the call. And even if I could, the background noise would just be too loud to have any kind of constructive conversation. So I'll leave it to you to pose questions and I'm happy to answer, but that's kind of my position. And I will also say that it's always just been my mom and I. I'm an only child raised by a single mom. So there's this codependency and this kind of, may I say, enmeshment. So I've always cared so deeply, and I've always worried naturally about her state. So this solution, even though I try to answer all the calls for those that I literally cannot get to, this solution is one that I'm very comfortable with, because it is that voice technology, the familiar voice technology that represents me in those moments that I can't get to the phone.
So, Kirstin, this sounds really interesting because I have a friend now living with dementia in a memory care. And his sons and friends have pretty much all muted him because he just does these repeat calls over and over and over again. And I was taking his calls, but I haven't been taking them as much because I'm dealing with a family member with dementia with the same thing and a neighbor.
Oh my goodness. So
So it's kind of crazy, but it is a really, really, really common thing. And I think so often caregivers think more about themselves and how frustrating it is. Like, how many times do I have to answer this same question and tell you the same thing, not realizing they are that person's security blanket and just hearing their voice. And, and usually it just takes seconds, to respond to them. It's not like a long drawn out thing. But again, when you're at work or, people can't always take those calls, or they're not comfortable taking those calls, or it breaks up your thought pattern to get done what you're doing, or you're in a dance recital, like you said, where you can't really physically take a call because you're not going to be able to hear and they're not going to be able to hear, and that's going to agitate them even more so.
Yeah, there's this thing that's called moral distress. Mm-hmm. So it's this this conundrum that we're faced with where do we answer the call? Okay, we have to answer the call, but then that builds this burnout. But then those
Mhm.
that go to voicemail that you're not able to answer creates guilt. So there's this constant struggle for the caregiver that is so hard to manage, to negotiate. And so the KindredMind solution allows for win-win. So you're able to, send that call to KindredMind, the familiar voice companion set up in your voice. It's not a recording. It's based on, a knowledge base of information that the caregiver has provided. So it relieves you in those moments where you can't get to the call. And it also allows for reduced anxiety in the loved one. So instead of, being met with no answer, no familiar voice, what KindredMind does is it follows the Alzheimer's Society of Canada's guidelines to dementia-friendly phone calls. It's also based on pillars that are the validation therapy and the simulated presence therapy. So you're leading with empathy. And as you said, really, the calls are very short-lived. So if you can just lead with empathy, answer those calls in a warm, friendly manner, and that is what KindredMind is designed and instructed to do. But again, in your voice. So it is that familiar, friendly security blanket, as you say.
So what happens, and I'm just going to use my friend Raj, who calls all the time, and he wants to go shopping and he needs something. How is something like that answered?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because it might change. You might be able to help him out that day and take him out for, whatever errand he needs to run, but that next day may not work. And he may call 15 times with that very same question. So again, based on those pillars, it's not always the answer they're looking for. They're not looking for that information. They're really looking for the comfort behind that because they're anxious or they're disoriented and they just need that reassurance. But to answer pointedly to your question, you have that database so that you can input all day, every day in real time, those updates. So if you anticipate a call that he's going to, ask about running a specific errand, you can actually add that information in that moment. So that day presents with the actual answer you would provide him in that situation.
Okay. So another common one, I think, and I'll just use him as an example. He will call and say, I can't find somebody's phone number. Can you reach them for me? Or I'm locked out of my phone, though he's using it,
Right.
Those types of things. So I could put in, if he's looking for someone's phone number, say, I will get a hold of them. And I'm assuming there will be some kind of notification to me that I hear that conversation that I know that I need to do that.
Yes. So in that dashboard, you're provided with a log for every single call. And in that log provides you their kind of mood. So if they seem more agitated or if they seem calm, all of those emotions are presented immediately for you. It's also a synopsis, little Coles notes of the conversation itself, and any tasks or call to action. So if in fact they're saying, I need so-and-so's phone number, it will alert you. And then you can respond accordingly if you feel like reaching out to that individual to let them know, or if you think it's one of those repeated questions that really aren't about getting in touch with that person, but rather just hearing your voice.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Then the KindredMind is offering that warmth and that patience, and makes it so that it's a calming experience. And unfortunately, what happens, and I guess what we're not stating the obvious here, is that the brain, like neurologically, the brain can't retain that memory of having just called. So that short-term memory is gone. And so, they'll call again. And again, it's not about getting that information. You have to meet them where they're at. And that's the validation. Is I understand that you're feeling maybe a little concerned about reaching so-and-so. I'm happy to, I'm happy to make that connection happen for you. And it's those types of reassuring words. But it's already designed to do that, but then you add in layers of personalized information to make it custom for that loved one.
Yeah, I can see where this could be really helpful. I'm thinking, like I said, I've got 3 people really close, neighbor, or we took her paper and we didn't take her paper. Well, kids will usually run out and bring that up to her, but she'll misplace it. And so just being able to tell the system that if she's asking for the paper, say no, we don't have that. You must have put it down in the house someplace, and then she'll look for that. Which those I think are really common when somebody loses something, or our loved one husband passed away, and so she will call and say, "Do you know where Tom is? He's not answering his phone. What time is he coming home for dinner?" And those types of things. You'd be able to feed those questions into them, or just there's so many different scenarios. And I know where people really get super fried is you get the calls during the day, but you get them 24 hours a day because schedules are out of whack. So, with my friend Roger, I bought him one of those big tablets that has the date and the time and the weather, day, date, and time. And so now when he calls, he'll say, "It's Roger, it's Monday, May 4th at 3:45 or 3:43. He kind of orients himself. But he doesn't understand the difference between AM and PM, so we kind of talked through that a little bit. But I can just see this being really a lifesaver for so many, because like you said, the family and friends guilt is so great.
Oh, it's gutting.
And some people just stop because they don't know how else to answer other than the truth, and they know the truth might hurt that person and they don't want to make them sad. And others just get frustrated with, "I just told you that. Why aren't you retaining this?" And it's like, because they have cognitive issues.
Right. We can't base the conversation in logic anymore. It's really driven by emotion. So, we've always been taught to say, I just told you, or remember when I told you blah, blah, blah. Those are part of the Alzheimer's Society of Canada to steer you away from those kind of logical, knee-jerk autopilot responses, because it doesn't work. In fact, it just increases the agitation, frustration, and confusion and concern. It makes them worried, and that's the last thing you want to do. So you want to really meet them in where they're at. So that's the validation therapy that KindredMind, is founded on.
It's nice that the Alzheimer's Society of Canada has even those guidelines for phones. I don't believe I've seen something like that from our Alzheimer's Association here in the US. And maybe it's there and I just haven't seen it or heard of it, because people don't know how to respond. And they're so used to, like, "I just told you once," or doctor's appointments. So often people will tell people of a doctor's appointment days, sometimes weeks ahead of time. Big mistake for most of them, because they think it's that day, it's going to be in an hour and they don't want to be late. And I mean, you have
that becomes a stressor until it happens. So a week out is a long time to stress about an appointment.
Even a couple of days. It just depends on where somebody is.
That's right. Yes.
When we just moved our loved one, and she had been there and she had seen the place and she liked the place, but then she would forget. And, then come home and say, well, she doesn't want to move, but she couldn't live there alone and things. And so some people will think this is really bad what we did, but her son was very nervous about it too. And he needed to get packed and get focused. And and not be rattled, to get everything out of the house that he needed. And so we said she was going to the doctor, because we knew by the time we got in the car, I could switch that up, but she was always really good about going to the doctor. She would get ready. Otherwise, she did not want to leave the house. If it was going out to eat or visiting people, she just like, oh, my back hurts or whatever it might be.
Right.
And so we ended up not telling her. We said she was going to the doctor, and it was such a smooth move. And so I say that because sometimes people get so caught up in it has to be the truth and it has to come from me, instead of looking at these alternatives. Like, she is so content and so happy where she's at. She really doesn't even talk about the house. And yet, even though, my mom lived with the disease for 30 years, I was still struggling with having that approach with her. But I knew we needed to, for her and the son to both kind of get through this thing.
Yeah.
And it worked out. It worked out beautifully. And so don't cut yourself short by thinking you always have to be the one to be there, because none of us can be there 24/7 in a healthy fashion.
No.
For someone, we just can't. We need those breaks. We need to do our life too. And I think it's really interesting that this voice can take on our voice. And I think there's some people will say there's maybe some pros and cons to that, because what are they going to say, and how can I trust this system to not say something that's going to be offensive or get me in trouble, or something I wouldn't say. And what would you say to somebody on that?
So there are guardrails, absolutely. And as I said, we do follow strictly the Alzheimer's Society of Canada's phone etiquette for dementia patients. So there are no vulgar words. There's, these guardrails are put in place knowing that they're speaking to a vulnerable population.
Mm-hmm.
And the caregiver, in my case, I can always jump in a call. So if a call is underway and I want to, break the line and take over the call, I also have that ability. And there is, of course, the summary of the conversation itself.
Okay. So if something were to be said that maybe you would just want to be said different in the future, because
that's a good question.
Because chances are it's the same question is going to be asked again. Can we give the system input in terms of how to answer that the next time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And also, one more point to the last question. There are some words that I know trigger my mother. Mm-hmm. So as far as, your question, how can we ensure that the conversation, stays in a calm way that doesn't, ruffle feathers? There are areas in the dashboard that you can put in words and replacement words. For example, my mom has a real problem with showers or bathing. Mm-hmm. And so I try to avoid that. And instead, she used to, with me, use words like squeaky clean when I was much younger and it was bath time. So I'm trying to use those familiar kind of catchphrases instead of the ones that trigger her. As far as providing answers to repetitive questions that we may want to tweak to provide, a more soft landing, again, that is something that you can update on the fly all day, any day in your dashboard that you have access to 24/7. So if you're finding that, and you can even do test calls. So you can test call the line and have all these trials with the voice companion and try and steer it into, off the rails. You can see how it responds, how it handles, and how it manages those types of conversations. And then tweak accordingly in the dashboard if need be.
So that's a big plus too. So you can really feel it and see it before it.
Yeah, that's important.
It comes into play. That's really a nice feature to be able to have. And I like being able to access it and tweak it. I love the idea of the dashboard with the summaries and stuff. So
and you can also hear your voice. So initially you have 3 sessions with the voice companion to adopt the clone of your voice so it sounds like you. And then there are bonus sessions. So you have the ability to carry on and give it more minutes of your airtime so that it perfects it and makes it pro.
So how does somebody sign up? Is this something they that's an app or that they do on their computer? How does all that work?
Well, it's online. So it's KindredMind.care. And all the information and resources are there. And to sign up is just on the website itself. We have just launched in North America publicly. So we're very excited about this. And yeah, it's something I'm proud of.
Now, is there a upfront fee or a subscription fee?
It's a monthly subscription fee.
Okay.
And there are various packages depending on the number of minutes, depending on the number of family members. So you can have a care circle and have, your siblings. And that way the calls are dispersed across, the family network and friends.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
So when they call, so they don't call my number still? You give them a new number to call?
Yeah, so you program that's precisely it. You program in your phone, in the dementia patient's phone, this KindredMind phone number. So it may be recorded in the directory as Lori, but that Lori phone number is not actually yours. It's now the KindredMind. So it will be call rerouted. And as I said, if you wish to jump in, you can, or if you wish to take calls, within a given window, say, weekends are wide open, call me anytime, then you can set the schedule so that you can field all and every single call on weekends. But you might be, on a flight and you'll lock it out to KindredMind taking those calls, and that setting is cover me. So KindredMind will cover me during that window.
Okay. So how does that work that you can jump in? Do we get called, but it shows up as KindredMind, so we know that we don't have to answer?
You can set it to a mode where it will ring you. You can set how many rings, but it will ring you, say, twice, and then you have in that moment the choice to take it. But if you're in a meeting and you see it's calling, then you can just let it ring through instead of to voicemail, but to KindredMind.
I'm still trying to get this pictured, and maybe there's a graphic on the site that shows this. So they're calling KindredMind's phone number, but it'll still go to me for a couple of rings.
Yes, it's a dedicated line for you.
Okay. And so that if I don't answer, then KindredMind takes over and answers the call and then logs it and stuff. Okay. Because it is hard to not answer the call, if you've got the time. But yet it would be really nice to be able to block out when you're in meetings or certain times of the day, or just to get some sleep.
Yeah, exactly. So the cover me section is if you are sleeping or in a meeting or what have you, it won't ring through to your phone.
Okay.
So you won't be distracted. You won't have that intrinsic guilt by seeing your phone light up. You won't even know. It'll push through a notification to let you know a call is in progress. But if you have your phone flipped over or the notifications are off, then you can still stay present in whatever you're undertaking in that given time.
Okay. And can a person, and I'm thinking this probably wouldn't work, could they join like, let's say I've got two rings and I can grab the call or it rolls over. Is there any way I can join the call silently just to hear how it's going?
No, you can break in and then take over the call, but you
Okay.
can't. Yeah, there's not a setting, like it's a great idea, but there's not a setting yet where you
Okay.
can just sit as a fly on the wall.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering how that worked. So,
That might be a pipeline feature, Lori. Thanks for that.
oh, well, cool. Can you tell us a price range for subscriptions?
Yeah, these are good questions. Now, I didn't set the pricing. I would have to visit our website. I'm currently in the dash, but I will say 5% of the monthly subscription will be
Hmm.
donated on a quarterly basis
Hmm.
to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada and to the Alzheimer's Foundation of America.
Okay.
The pricing model is for the essential for families just getting started. We're looking at 179 Canadian per month. That allows you 200 minutes per month. The
Okay.
standard, which is today the most popular, is 249
Okay.
per month, and these are Canadian.
Okay. That is really helpful, to alleviate the stress for both the person with dementia and the caregiver, releasing that guilt and still feeling like they're cared for. I think we need to look at our different options of what's available and to be able to keep things calm because the older I get, the more calm I want.
Exactly.
That is for sure in my life. It's like, okay, I don't have to be running like a chicken with my head cut off,
That's right.
trying to do 45 things. I just don't have it in me. I don't think it's as effective as I used to think when I was younger, and my attitude is just very, very different towards that. So calm is very important. Well, this is great. Anything else that we haven't covered that you think we should?
We talked about the benefits for the caregiver, as you just pointed out. As certainly the benefits were paramount for me when thinking about my mom in this case, wanting to make it so that she wasn't anxious or sitting in fear because I couldn't take her call. I mean, that just killed me. So we mentioned both of those. There's been several studies, and they're all listed on the website about how all of this type of familiar voice technology really reduces agitation and anxiety in the loved ones. So that really is my driving force.
I like this concept a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's one of those things that I've heard so many times from people. The years ago, there was a nurse who, worked with a lot of dementia patients, and he would also always be asked, when's my son or daughter coming? And
Oh,
he ended up making, and this is really old school, but I thought it was really interesting. There was like a little recorder that like pinched on somebody's clothes and they could push a button for the answer.
oh
Like,
wow.
I'm going to call you later today, that was in their voice just to give somebody that relief that they weren't so disconnected and stuff. And yet, there's always the possibility of that coming off. And, this just
Right.
makes so much more sense,
So that would be
the way
like
we live today.
the simulated presence therapy. That's
Mhm.
precisely it, except that's kind of the analog version. But
Yep.
ours is built precisely on that. A 2024 randomized trial study among a peer group it was published in the International Journal of Neuroscience, and I'm quoting here, demonstrated meaningful reductions in agitation, anxiety, and caregiver burnout when familiar voice presence was combined, of course, with standard dementia care. So the research is clear, and that's really where we built this concept
Mhm.
on, is to just to help relieve that anxiety and to, as I said, with the moral distress, also relieve the caregiver, because caregiver burnout is real.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And you don't want a phone to get the better of you.
Right.
With that
I mean, in some cases, one of the solutions was to remove the phone from the loved one, and that feels. I mean, that's removing the independence, and that's removing their lifeline to their family. So that doesn't seem like that's not what I would do for my mom.
And there's a lot of communities that won't allow people in memory care to have a phone. And that was one of our criteria where we moved our loved one to, is her phone is real important. She doesn't know how to use a lot of it.
Yeah.
But
it's a lifeline. It's a symbolic lifeline.
Very, very critical and very important to her. And so we needed to figure out how to be able to maneuver that around. And their community feels, where she's living, feels the same way, but many communities don't.
No, I didn't know that there were some rules and regulations about phone usage, or even having phones to begin with in care facilities.
Yeah. Well, I think they worry about, because they can easily go missing. And then is it missing, misplaced, or is it stolen? And who's the first to get accused of it being stolen? Staff. There can be that level in there. And then there can just be the agitation level of not being able to know how to work the phone, which I think at that point, then you might have to do something if if they're constantly losing it. Let's say if they've got it on a password, or they don't know how to use it anymore.
Well, we have this memory care phone where you can program based on you can have like a little photo of the family member, and it's just a one button solution. Once they, have challenges in dialing phone numbers, you can still keep that line of communication open that way.
Yeah, I think most of the people nowadays are used to a cell phone, though, versus a hardline phone. And some of the communities aren't wiring for hard lines anymore. So then you'd have to actually get that set up as an independent line, which can get a little complicated in a big complex.
We managed successfully to do that with my mom. But I wasn't aware of, these restrictions in various facilities.
And they're kind of a hit and miss. And I think sometimes it just depends on who's in management.
Right, of course.
At the time. With that, just like some communities say, we don't want you to visit for 2 to 3 weeks because they have to get acclimated. And,
wow.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
Yeah. And our family was like, no, we're going to be all over here.
Yeah.
that's just who we are and stuff. So, there's lots of different rules that are set in different complexes. And those are things that you have to talk about, but they might be living, still independently in their home, and this could still be a very helpful process and technology to be able to tap into to give them comfort. Because when they, like you said, when they're repeating those calls, the anxiety just keeps going up a notch, and you can hear it in their voice when you do answer.
Yep.
Oh, I've been trying, thank you for telling me. Thanks for answering the phone. I mean, it's just this relief in their voice. And some of them know and can feel the sense of relief and will actually be really grateful and thank you. And others, you just have to hear it through their voice that you're their calming source.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-710-5100. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. Not available in California.
For that. So As far as setting it up and, doing your meeting with the AI to get, kind of your cadence and your voice down, how long does something like that take to do? I would
So
imagine sessions aren't overly long.
Nope, there are 3 sessions of 7 minutes apiece, and
Okay.
answering their prompts. So you're answering the questions, and those questions fill out the forms. So it's kind of an efficient system that way. And then you can go in and tweak the form responses if you want to, add something that you missed when answering the first time. So no, in total 21 minutes. It doesn't have to be done in one sitting. It can be done, at your convenience.
Okay. And if there's a question we haven't thought of, the AI will still come up
Yes.
with an
Yes.
answer.
Yeah, based on, as I said, the Alzheimer's Society of Canada's guidelines for dementia-friendly phone calls, and there are some very strict guardrails in place.
If there's a question that they ask that we hadn't thought of, are we alerted, or do we have to always go into that dashboard to see? Because I think from a caregiver standpoint, that would be a nice benefit if there was like a new question posed for us, because some people will just like hand it over and walk away. I mean, and go.
Except you get an email, so you get a daily kind of summary of the calls, or maybe there were no calls that day, but every day you'll get an email to give you a report of the conversation, the communications that occurred that very day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
Yeah. So there's two touch points. You can electively go and review the dashboard, or you can just receive it in your inbox.
Okay. Perfect. And how long have you guys been in business? I would imagine you've been up and running in Canada.
It's brand new. As I mentioned, we're just launching now publicly. Okay. So we had a small knit, private group testing. Okay. And so now we're ready to go public.
Okay. Because when you said you were launching, I was thinking that was in the US and maybe you had already launched in Canada.
So we have in Ontario, Canada, but now we're casting our net across Canada and the States.
Okay, gotcha. Well, good. Well, exciting. I'm so glad you came on to share this with us. I think it's a technology that will help a lot of families.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lori, for this platform. It's nice that we have this to hear about all the different resources and tools available, for this vulnerable population, the ones that we love deeply.
Exactly. And I can see where this would be very helpful for staff and communities as well. And, in terms of reducing that agitation, and our goals are always to try to do less medicating.
Oh gosh, yeah, that would be the last resort. There are other alternatives before we go pharmaceutical to manage repetitive dementia calling.
It would be nice if our healthcare system would cover this. I mean,
yeah,
because you can look at 179 or 249, and for a lot of families that's going to be a lot of money. But when you look at it regarding medications, it's a drop in the bucket in terms of keeping somebody safe and centered and calm. And then you add in, if they are in a community, that ripple effect, or at home, that agitation, that can spread, and everybody can kind of escalate with stuff like that because one side's trying to deal in logic and the other one can't.
Right.
And so, being able to get that covered later on down the road, they keep saying that they want less pharmaceuticals, but I'm not seeing a lot of things that they're covering to help do that, other than just take them off,
Yeah, right.
But it would be a better outcome if we had replacements, to kind of fill in the gap and support, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to that point, speaking of cost, it could ask behaviors come into play. I mean, I've heard of instances where, because they're so agitated, they can't get through to their loved one, they start pacing, they start being destructive within the care home, and then that brings on a whole new bunch of challenges.
Oh, very much so. And in some places will kick them out.
Well, that's where I was getting to, is then you have this whole new problem of like looking for another alternative living arrangement. There's the moving costs. I mean, it could become an extreme. That could be an extreme scenario, but it has happened where, yeah, you get kicked out.
Well, and once you get labeled, as aggressive, it's really hard to find a placement. There's very few, and it's very restricted. And so the environment has totally changed without sometimes that additional support. I had someone the other day talking about, and again, I don't know, I'm not a medical professional, but was talking about a loved one, end stages, in hospice, and agitated. And I thought, there's absolutely no reason someone in hospice should be agitated.
No.
Especially and they died within a week. And I just thought, something's really off here.
That's so sad.
Yeah, because to me, it's either pain or discomfort, that is causing that. And I mean, it could be, I suppose, something chemically in the brain that is causing that as well. But there are options to be able to give that person some peace, with that. So I just think this is a really cool venture that you've started, and I can see this being really helpful to many, many people.
Thanks,
so thank you.
Thank you.
So again, I do want to just give out your website, which is KindredMind.care. And you've got a phone number listed here too. I know I'm looking at your Dementia Map profile of 437-367-0960. Yep. And you are on LinkedIn, Facebook, you have a YouTube channel, and then also an Instagram profile that people can follow. Thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
To our listeners, I always like to ask you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share. You don't know who in your sphere of influence is in need of this information, because so many people still don't talk openly about this. There's an embarrassment and this thing that we should be able to handle it on our own, and none of us can do this job alone. We need to be able to communicate. We need to be able to tap into the services, products, and tools that are here to support us. And the more we can get this information out, the more kind of normal it's going to feel for someone to reach out and grab it when they're ready. Please like, click, and share. Be that giver of hope. And then check out Alzheimer's Speaks for all of our free educational resources that we have, as well as our sister company, Dementia Map. Until next time, bye now.
Attention seniors. Are you looking for a community that offers incredible benefits and stands up for your values? Look no further than AMAC. With an AMAC membership, you'll enjoy exclusive discounts on insurance, travel, dining, and shopping. Stay informed with 6 issues a year of our award-winning AMAC magazine, delivering trusted news and valuable insights. But that's not all. AMAC is committed to defending America's future by directly bringing the voices of our more than 2 million members to our elected officials. Join a community that cares about your needs and your values. For a limited time, we're offering a 1-year membership for only $1. Yes, just $1 for a year of incredible benefits and advocacy. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer and join AMAC today. Visit amac.us/join now. That's amac.us/join now.